Every person stepping aboard a Boeing airplane is at risk. There was no accountability. Not a single person from Boeing went to jail. Hundreds of people died, and there's been no justice.
I want to make clear that I have raised these issues over 3 years. I was ignored. I was told not to create delays. I was told, frankly, to shut up.
For years, the Boeing 787 Dreamliner was sold as the crown jewel of modern aviation. Boeing promised an aircraft that was lighter, stronger, smarter, one that would sip less fuel and carry passengers further in near silence. British Airways went all in, branding the Dreamliner as the backbone of their long-haul strategy. But here's the uncomfortable truth. What was meant to be a triumph of engineering slowly revealed itself as something far darker. Behind the glossy marketing campaigns, strange incidents began to surface. Not fiery explosions, but quiet, creeping anomalies that pilots couldn't explain and engineers couldn't trace. The Dreamliner wasn't supposed to fail. Yet the warning signs were there all along. It started on June 8, 2025, when British Airways flight BA217 left Heathrow bound for Washington. Clear skies, no turbulence, nothing unusual. But just 43 minutes into the flight, the Dreamliner stopped climbing. Passengers were told it was a jammed flap, nothing serious. But that wasn't the truth. What really happened was far stranger. The aircraft's brain slipped into what investigators call the false ground state. The plane believed it was still sitting on the runway even as it flew thousands of feet above London. Inside that glitch, critical systems never fully activated. Engine power was limited, hydraulics weakened, and worst of all, warning alarms stayed silent. To the cockpit, everything looked normal until it wasn't. Just 2 weeks later, another 787 suffered a total electrical reboot during taxi, lights flickering, engines refusing to start. These failures weren't mechanical. They were behavioral. The Dreamliner wasn't breaking down, it was hesitating. And in aviation, hesitation is the first step toward disaster. While engineers chased software ghosts, another problem was quietly eating the Dreamliner from the inside. Unlike aluminum aircraft, the 787 was built with carbon fiber composites. Stronger and lighter on paper, but British Airways engineers began spotting microscopic voids between composite layers, invisible to the naked eye, but devastating under stress. Panels that should have lasted decades were showing separation after just a few years, aging 10 years too fast. This wasn't normal wear. Internal Boeing memos from 2021 revealed that structural shims, tiny spacers meant to fill gaps, were missing or misaligned in aircraft. Boeing called it a production quality issue, nothing serious, but investigators found resin voids and poor bonding across dozens of jets. The Dreamliner's revolutionary composite body wasn't resisting fatigue, it was breaking down at the molecular level. Even if the body held together, the heart was failing too. British Airways chose the Rolls-Royce Trent 1000 engine, marketed as efficient and durable. Instead, it became one of the most quietly recalled engines in aviation history. Turbine blades were fracturing far earlier than expected, corrosion was eating compressor cores, and vibrations so violent that pilots had to cut power mid-flight to avoid catastrophic failure. By summer 2025, 67 Dreamliners sat grounded at Heathrow like monuments to a failed promise, each one waiting for replacement engines that never came. Rolls-Royce was months behind, and Boeing's design meant switching to competing engines required complete rewiring and recertification. The fleet was trapped. The crisis spilled into terminals. Passengers found flights to Abu Dhabi, Vancouver, and Seoul disappearing overnight with no explanation, just operational adjustments. Families were stranded, business trips collapsed, honeymoons canceled. Call centers were overwhelmed with frustrated travelers demanding answers that customer service didn't have. For British Airways staff, it was worse. Schedulers scrambled daily, shuffling aircraft like chess pieces to cover gaps left by grounded Dreamliners. One pilot said it plainly, "It feels like we're building a house on sand. Every morning we start from zero." Social media filled with red departure boards and stranded crowds. The crisis wasn't just technical anymore, it was human. As British Airways fought to survive, Boeing faced its own reckoning. On May 30th, 2025, surprise FAA auditors walked into Boeing's North Charleston plant and found a pressure cooker. Inspections overdue, quality forms signed without verification, technicians working back-to-back shifts on critical fuselage joints. The same shortcuts flagged years earlier were still happening systematically. Internal memos revealed a culture of corner-cutting. One redacted note read, "We are applying band-aids to structural systems that require surgery."
I want to make clear that I have raised these issues over 3 years. I was ignored. I was told not to create delays. I was told, frankly, to shut up. At one point, Boeing management got sick of me and raising these issues and moved me out of the 787 program into the 777 program. On the 777 program, I found problems. Again, I found that Boeing started a new process to build the airplane without taking into the consideration of the design of the airplane and how the airplane was designed.
For a company that had delivered over 1,100 Dreamliners, this was devastating. Boeing's stock dropped 12% in a week as international carriers demanded independent inspections before accepting new jets. The nightmare spread globally. By mid-July 2025, over a dozen airlines across 5 continents were quietly grounding Dreamliners. American Airlines pulled 5 jets. Japan Airlines rerouted 2 after power interruptions. Air New Zealand admitted 60% of long-haul operations could be affected. From Frankfurt to Santiago, hangars filled with silent aircraft that looked airworthy but couldn't be trusted. No airline wanted to go public. There were no press conferences, just routes disappearing and vague notices about operational adjustments. The silence wasn't strategy, it was survival. By month's end, at least 140 Dreamliners were confirmed grounded. Regulators in Europe, Australia, and Canada launched urgent reviews. The world's most advanced aircraft was unraveling, one confused system at a time. The Dreamliner's collapse revealed a deeper flaw in how we think about progress. The 787 didn't fail because it was outdated. It failed because it was too modern to question itself. Systems behaved normally right until they didn't. Maintenance crews signed off inspections based on clean data even as aircraft quietly unraveled. The Dreamliner's intelligence, the very thing that made it revolutionary, was also what made it dangerous. When software slipped into confusion, humans became passengers too. The aircraft was proof that complexity doesn't equal safety, that automation doesn't always mean control. Boeing had built a plane so advanced that no single person could understand how all its parts communicated. And when that network hesitated or disagreed with itself, trust, the foundation of flight itself, began cracking. This was never just about an airplane. It was about a culture that stopped asking hard questions, about the myth that progress without accountability is still progress. For passengers staring at canceled flights and broken promises, that gamble had become personal. The Dreamliner wasn't the future of aviation. It was a warning about what happens when innovation moves faster than wisdom. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It really means a lot to us.